Traveling the Vortex. Side Trip.
And welcome back to another Side Trip. My name is Shaun. This is Star Trek 204. And we will be taking a look back at Star Trek The Next Generation Season 4. And what a season it was. Obviously known for the conclusion of the Borg two-parter, The Best of Both Worlds. The epic cliffhanger that is still ranked among the top pieces of television in history. But Season 4 had a lot of other things that it is known for, and should be known for as well. It kind of solidified Star Trek's place in television history, not only among ratings. It was kind of finally the time frame where the show had hit its stride. It was accepted not only among fans, but among the people. The general populace was watching, and it was popular. It was beamed into homes across America and across the world at this point. It was doing quite well in that regard. It picked up a theme throughout the fourth season of family. Many of the episodes dealt with the family, not only family members of the crew. We were introduced to Worf's son, Alexander. We meet Picard's extended family. We meet, for the first time, Jack Crusher, Wesley's deceased father. And, of course, then there's also, our extended crew. O'Brien is finally given a first name. And there are, the family or familiar ties within the crew themselves. All of this was kind of explored within this season. There's also the kind of ongoing, even though the series, the formula, the template, as it were, the series kind of sort of began to deal with planting seeds and breadcrumbs for extended story arcs. And this was the season where a lot of that kind of began to really take root. And we have a lot of Klingon specific stories dealing with the rise of tensions and the Duras situation, as it will become to be known, leading into the eventual Klingon Civil War. A lot of unrest. And all of that took place here in this season as well. Season 4, while overall, I think Season 4 may not have the same number of individually strong standout episodes that Season 3 has, at least for me personally. But I think consistently, overall, the episodes are stronger. They're all consistently good. There's a far fewer number of meh episodes in that batch. They're all watchable. There's not really a bad one in the bunch. It's all entertaining. It's all something that you can sit down and enjoy and watch Star Trek and really kind of see a group of actors and know that they're kind of in their moment. This is really their time to shine, as it were. And they're being backed by a group of production staff, off camera, that's also in their moment. They're all pistons are firing, as it were. The warp core is fully engaged, and there's a lot of good stuff here. So, continuing with my top 5 and what I feel are kind of, the best episodes of each season. I'm going to start off with The Drumhead. Now, this, on the surface, it's a courtroom drama, and it's a pretty dry one at that. But I admire this one so much for the heaviness that's on display here. It's a witch hunt that ensues on the ship for suspected Romulan spies on board the Enterprise. Gene Simmons guest stars. You may recognize her as the absolutely wonderful social worker from Mrs. Doubtfire. Do you consider yourself funny, Mr. Hilliard? And she's definitely not funny in this episode. She's terrifying. And she manages to deliver a performance that ramrods and runs roughshod over Picard. And that says something. When you have a character that through sheer force of will can trample Jean-Luc Picard, you are dealing with something that is quite extraordinary. And she ropes Worf in on this witch hunt, and what starts off very plausible, very, well, that makes sense, turns terrifying. And while it's very obviously a morality play, we're doing the Salem witch trials, it's scary how quickly this enlightened society that is supposedly so far advanced from our own, so many light years beyond where we're at today, can slide down this slope into that backwards way of thinking. Despite Picard's objections, despite his very rational, ethical, moral objections to what's going on, and how safe and sane they make it sound, and how easy it is. And that's one of the things I really admire for this. Not only the performances and how everything is delivered, but just the sheer ease in which they make all this turn. It truly is a very powerful episode to watch. Number 4 on my list actually is the very next episode, Half a Life. And this one also features a fantastic turn from a guest star, David Ogden Stiers. Of course, he's great and everything. And another guest star, Major Barrett Roddenberry, returns as Loxana Troi. And what makes this one better than just about anything else that the Loxana episodes are always, they're good for a laugh. This one is not such a laugh fest. Loxana finds herself romantically involved with this guy, and he is of a certain age, and his race commits suicide. Once it's kind of Logan's Run. You get to a certain age and you commit ritualistic suicide. You're done. Which she finds appalling because, Loxana is very much larger than life, and you have so much to live for, and you have this, and you should run away with me, and why would you do that? Completely discounting the culture and the but no, this is the way it's done, and this shows, in our society it's done because we don't wish to be a burden on anyone else, and we it's done as a tribute, and it's done so that our family has the best of us, and that they're not burdened with dealing with an invalid or a drooling Alzheimer's patient or something of that regard. And the episode does a couple of things really well. First of all, it puts forth the suicide argument. And whatever side you personally come down on, whether you are for or against an assisted suicide at that age, there is no condemnation. There is no this is right or this is wrong. And I'm always appreciative when Star Trek can do that, when they can present something of a volatile nature, and yet do it in a way that shows that whatever your personal feelings or opinions on that matter are, you may not be wrong. That's always a very challenging thing to do as a writer, and they manage to do it, I think. The second thing that they do, which is even more challenging, is to show Lwaxana Troi in a new light. And I say that because, again, the Lwaxana episodes tend to be played for laughs. She is such a strong personality that she tends to kind of bowl everybody over when she appears on the ship. And it's meant to be that way. She is a gale force, hurricane wind when she comes on. And you have some fun for 40 minutes, and then she blows off the ship, and there's this collective sigh of relief that, well, we've done the Lwaxana episode for the season, and we're kind of done with that. And instead of that, we are given a very personal side to her. The defenses are let down, and we are shown a side to Lwaxana that is not what we are used to. It is not what we've experienced before. It is a very soft, vulnerable, different approach to this character. And it is an amazing transformation. It suddenly makes this woman approachable. It makes you care about her. If you didn't before, it really flips your approach to it. And while most of the Lwaxana episodes are Lwaxana and Troi and their relationship, usually as a facet of their relationship in regards to Troy's relationship to Riker or Lwaxana's relationship with Picard, this suddenly is Lwaxana's relationship with this other guy. And Troi doesn't really factor into it all that much. It's there, but it's not a big piece of it. And so it's just a completely different facet. And Majel Barrett deserves so much credit for coming in and doing something different. It's easy, and there are a lot of, and I'm using air quotes here, fans that kind of bag on her for her portrayal of Lwaxana Troi. And it's easy to do that because of, for the same reason that those same fans, I think, bag on Will Wheaton for his portrayal of Wesley Crusher, because that's the way the character's written. And so it's easy to kind of lump the two together and not realize that, well, you can only do so much with what you're given. But this to me shows that no. There's actually far more here than what we've been given, and you're being a little unfair to it. And it was, in fact, this episode that made me, because I'll be honest, I was part of that group. I didn't like Lwaxana a lot as a character. She just didn't appeal to me. But it was this episode that made me go back and reevaluate her. And this episode in particular really kind of opened my eyes to that and made me appreciate her far more as a character and as an actress. And it's simply fantastic. Number 3 on my list is family. Now, family is kind of an oddball of the group. It got the lowest ratings of any Star Trek episode ever when it debuted. It is the technical third part of the Borg trilogy of the two-parter, in that it deals with the aftermath of the Best of Both Worlds. It is very little to do with Star Trek. There is no B plot dealing with something science-y. There is no, there's no Klingons and phasers and Romulan subplots. There's no bad guys. There's no seeking out strange new worlds. Gene Roddenberry hated the script, as a matter of fact, but yet it was still greenlit by the powers that be. And yet, it is one of the most powerful episodes of the show, and critically is one of the best regarded episodes. Picking up where Best of Both Worlds Part 2 leaves off after the attack and rescue of Captain Picard, Picard goes home. He goes back to France, to the Vineyard, and meets his estranged brother to kind of convalesce and regroup. And it's... Perhaps I'm doing this unfairly because I placed this episode at number 3 on my list, and number 2 on my list is Best of Both Worlds Part 2, so perhaps I really need to talk about that one since chronologically it comes first. And I think I will, actually. So the Best of Both Worlds Part 2 is the epic continuation of the cliffhanger, in which we get the, Mr. Worf fire, and the very fizzled out nothing happens because Picard was he was there. He was part of that plan, and the Borg adapted. So the big epic, we waited months and months and months for what's going to happen, and nothing happened. The Borg were ready for us, and what the wind sucked out of our sails that was. So then, the Enterprise makes some repairs. We're late to the party. We get the Battle of Wolf 359, and the Enterprise shows up, and there's nothing left. The entire fleet has been wiped out. Eventually, we catch up, and Riker manages to pull up some very cool, unorthodox tactics in a distractionary move that allows an away team to beam aboard and kidnap Picard back. And then they use data to link his positronic brain to Picard and the Borg neural net, which Picard manages to break free just long enough to offer a suggestion where Data plants a suggestion into the neural net into a subroutine that is not important, which causes the Borg to go into a regenerative mode. There's a power feedback, and they blow up just on the verge of getting to Earth. The end. And the episode ends with Picard staring out in the window of space as if he can still hear somebody calling to him. So this episode is good. It's extremely good. It's extremely well done. And it's got many, many, many satisfying moments. Unfortunately, it is the follow-up to Best of Both Worlds Part 1. And there's absolutely nothing you can do that will ever top Mr. Worf fire. There's no coming back from that. There's nothing you could have done to resolve that cliffhanger that would have been as good as the cliffhanger itself. And so there's always going to be a little bit of letdown in that regard. Endings are hard. We've always joked about that, and that's part of the legacy of this particular episode, is that it's just a hard one to come back from. Having said that, and now moving on to family, Picard, you have to kind of understand, Picard as a person is such a dynamic individual. He's highly intelligent. He's reserved and yet emotionally broad of spectrum. He experiences things on a level that I don't think a lot of people do. He has a true zest for life. And he, of all people, because of his admiration for the finer things like Shakespeare, and exploration. He gets humanity. He genuinely appreciates the highs that humanity can reach. And he chooses not to focus on the lows. And in come the Borg in the best of both worlds. And they kidnap him. And they violate him. They essentially rape him. They mutilate him. They take his essence, everything that he is, everything that he aspires to be, everything that he will become. They take his future and strip him down to nothing. His loyalty to Starfleet is gone. He gives up all the secrets, including Riker's plan to blast them. The command codes to, the fleet internet's gone. They've got that. The battle plans that will defend the fleet, gone. They use him as a tool to defeat these other ships, other captains, friends of his, including the Admiral on the Melbourne at Wolf 359. He is responsible for the deaths of 11,000 of Starfleet's finest. His fault. Yes, it's a Borg cutting laser that did it, but it was all on his say-so. Yes, he was a puppet, an unwitting, an unwilling participant, but Picard will never see it that way. How can he forgive himself of that? So they strip his past from him. They take his present, because he's not on the Enterprise. He is on this cube. This, his very identity is gone. He's no longer on the flagship of the Federation. He's on this unidentifiable, faceless, expressionless box. There's no art. There's no beauty. There's no celebration of anything. It's just Borg. It's a box of circuitry. And then they take his future, because there's no hope. There is no tomorrow for Captain Jean-Luc Picard anymore. There is only Locutus. Resistance is futile. And the impact of that, you cannot do a serialized TV show and give us that, and then come back the next week with this week we're going on an archaeological dig, and this is going to, you know what I mean? There had to be fallout from that. And so wisely, despite the drop in ratings, we got family, and Picard goes home to deal with that. He goes home to be sullen and depressed and get verbally berated by his brother and get his butt kicked and roll around in the dirt. He needed that. He needed that as a character. We needed that, whether we will acknowledge it or not. I think we needed that as an audience. And that, I think, is the true genius of family, is that we needed to collectively catch our breaths after the emotional fallout of the end of that episode. And especially after a 3-month hiatus waiting to come back for it. And so, even though there's a large portion of fandom that didn't like it, I think critics are right in this instance. I think it's an important episode that had to happen. And in many ways, it's difficult to judge these three entities separately, even though they spread across 2 different seasons and 3 different episodes. It's realistically all one story. And I think it's almost a bit of a cheat that when they released The Best of Both Worlds on DVD, that they didn't include family. It's an epilogue. You needed to be there as part of the story to really kind of appreciate the goings on. And yeah, there's a B plot where we're introduced to Worf's human adoptive parents, and we get to meet holographic Jack Crusher through a letter to Wesley. And if there's a failing to family, while those beats are good, it should have just focused on Picard. But, the powers that be are the powers that be. All right, number 1, the best episode of Season 4, is the last episode of Season 4, Redemption Part 1. This sets up the Klingon Civil War. Now, the war itself has actually been brewing for a while now and goes back to things that happened the previous season and things that happened this season with the disenfranchisement of Worf and the ascension of Gowron to the position of High Chancellor, and the Duras family, and the plot to basically make Worf, incommunicado. And it all comes to a head with the Duras sisters, Ursula and Betor, and they have enough support within the council to cause a split, to cause a rift, that these people are willing to follow them and not Gowron. And Worf resigns his commission to go and help fight in that war. And you have to be almost a Klingon aficionado at this point, I think, to really appreciate this. And I'll be honest, the first time through, I wasn't. I was kind of done with Klingons at this point. We'd gotten such an overload on Worf and Klingon backstory. While it was exciting, it was also kind of like, man, some of these other characters, I mean, we only get one Geordi episode a season. What's going on with everybody else? Why do we continue to get Worf stuff? And it's because, obviously, Worf has a whole empire of backstory attached to him that we can explore. There is some ripe drama there, and I wasn't quite ready for it originally, and what a fool I was. I know better now. And it takes a little bit of forethought to plan that and see it through, and I'm so glad that I did. There's also a crazy setup in this one that harks back to something back in season 3 that comes to fruition later, but I will get into that later. So yeah, this it's a powerful season. Now, some honorable mentions, which the season is ripe with. Where to start? Legacy. I think Legacy is a great one. We are introduced to Tasha Yar's sister, who on a side note is just absolutely stunning. But it was a very great episode to kind of go back to her homeworld and kind of see the state of things and what she came from, and the legacy that the sister felt like she had to live up to. Cupid, our Q episode, once again played for laughs, but so many laughs. Doing a Robin Hood shtick was so much fun. Reunion, bringing Kalar back, which is the episode that really kind of sets up redemption and introduces us to Alexander Worf's son. So much real heavy lifting is there. The Host is one that I think is frequently overlooked, where Dr. Crusher falls in love with a diplomat who is then injured, and it's a Trill. And so the Trill, of course, have the symbiote on the inside, and they're put into other bodies, and so they have to put them in a new body, and Dr. Crusher has to come to grips with this new symbiote body. And it's one of those that at the time when the series came out felt very daring. And looking at it now, 20 years later, it is so frustratingly dated. It feels so, wow, really? We were not enlightened at all. But I think it's an interesting one because, as with the Ferengi and how they evolved, I think this is kind of a fun one to look at how the Trill were initially conceptualized and how they've changed, especially in regards to Deep Space Nine. And then just a personal choice is First Contact, in which Riker is given cosmetic surgery in order to blend in with the natives, and it goes badly. It is a hoot. This episode is an absolute blast from start to finish because it's kind of an example of everything that can go wrong does go wrong. And he has to, seduce his way out of a hospital. And you've got BB Newworth. I've always wanted to make love to an alien. There's so much winning going on in this episode. But again, it's another one of those examples of Picard seeing the beauty of humanity, even though we're not dealing with humanity. It's just I think it's a very great episode. And I think it's another one that maybe humanity fandom doesn't always look real favorably on for some reason. So... there's a lot of good stuff in season 4. Now, one little bit of feedback that had come in, it had been requested that maybe it's not a bad idea for me to, in addition to telling you all about Star Trek, for me to tell you where you can watch Star Trek. And that's certainly not a bad idea, obviously, although I question the value of it in some regards. Obviously, check your local listings is kind of the first and foremost rule of thumb. Right now, my go-to answer would always be the library. Your local library is going to be your best resource for just about anything. And right now, I imagine, if your area is like ours, the local library is closed, as with so much of the rest of the country at the moment. But failing that, the beauty of Star Trek is that it is so universal. It is also universally streaming. At last check, and of course, you have to take this with a grain of salt because I'm not sure when you are listening to this, but at last check, it was available on Netflix, it was available on Amazon, it was available on just about every streaming platform out there in some form or another. So if you subscribe to any of the big, with the exception of Disney, obviously, because it's not Disney, but if you subscribe to any of the big streaming platforms, likely you can get Star Trek. You can also find it on H&I, which is a wonderful a retro television station. Again, check your local listings to see. You can discover that one on both cable and over-the-air antennas. And it's also, obviously DVD, Blu-rays are available. And, Star Trek's kind of all over the place. The exceptions to that rule are the new series. Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Picard are exclusively on CBS All Access. So you have to pay for CBS All Access in order to get those. Everything else is out there. It's kind of like the X-Files. The truth is out there. Star Trek is out there. Just a little bit of research on your end. Just Google it and see what you can find. But check those local listings. You should be able to find it just about anywhere. I think that'll wrap it up for this one, and we will return with another side trip for Star Trek Season 5 for The Next Generation. I hope you've enjoyed this and continue to enjoy these. And obviously, if you have any questions or feedback or want to pick my brain about anything in particular, please feel free to do so. And you can do that over on the Traveling the Vortex side. It's feedback@travelingthevortex.com, and just address it to Shaun. You can send it in through the website or whatnot, or what have you. And many of you know me. I'm on social media. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and all those. If you have any questions, feel free to send it to me there as well. Until next time, wishing you all the best, stay safe, live long and prosper.